My name is Dan Genovese, Product Manager at OMG Roofing Products, the inventors of the game-changing roofing system known as RhinoBond. And this is the Metal Rhino Podcast, where we talk everything metal. Not heavy metal, but instead RhinoBond for standing seam metal retrofit roofing. RhinoBond for standing seam metal retrofit roofing offers many benefits for both the building owner and the roofing contractor. And it's our mission to get that message out loud and clear. To talk with us today is Peter Chaffee, a fourth generation owner of Chaffee Industrial Roofing based in Providence, Rhode Island. Chaffee Industrial Roofing has been in business since 1908. That is impressive. So welcome, Peter. Congratulations to you and your family and company for being in business for 116 years. Well, I have to say, you look pretty good for 116.
It's all in the facial cream.
I agree. Well done. So, listen, we're going to talk about RhinoBond. We're going to talk about metal retrofit roofing. And it's safe to say Chaffee Industrial Roofing has seen it all. You know, where would you rank RhinoBond in game-changing roofing methods in those 116 years? Can you tell us?
Well, 116 years is a really long time. I mean, if you go back that far, electricity was new in 1908. So in the grand scheme of things, it's always hard to rate anything because you're talking the invention of single-ply roofing, polyiso, tapered insulation, all these wonderful inventions. I'd say in terms of attachment technology, certainly the biggest innovation within the last 40 or 50 years. Okay. Because for the longest time, you really had three attachment technologies. You had ballast, mechanically attached, and fully adhered. With RhinoBond, you've added a fourth system that's an awesome hybrid that I personally think beats out all the other ones in most applications. Obviously, every application is different, but in terms of our everyday go-to, if you have a heat-welded system, TPO, PVC, then RhinoBond, in my opinion, for the most part, is usually the way to go.
Okay, very good. RhinoBond for standing seam retrofit roofing is relatively new because RhinoBond's newer, right? And you have all these other options. So how long has Chaffee Industrial Roofing been using RhinoBond for standing seam metal retro?
Probably the last 10, 15 years, somewhere in that range. So what it was we've always done a lot of pre-engineered metal buildings, metal retrofits. In fact, our own roof here at Chaffee Roofing is a metal retrofit. Mm-hmm. What it was you really had prior to RhinoBond, you actually really only had two attachment technologies. You could fully adhere the roof, which meant, screwing, plates and fasteners into the metal. But typically the metal is very thin gauge. So there's always a little bit of a question on how well is that fastener biting? Will it really hold up under the test of time, even in a fully adhered system? Mm-hmm. With mechanically attached, the downside is you lose so much of the sheet in waste because if the sheet is, say, 6 foot wide and the purlin spacing is 5 feet apart, you lose a foot out of every sheet that you can't gain back. So from a pricing standpoint, there's maybe a 15, 20% waste every time that you have to fasten to the purlins. Now, there's other options where you could use double rust strip, but those are also expensive. So prior to RhinoBond, there wasn't really a lot of great alternatives to installing a pre-engineered metal building or metal retrofit.
Was this something you guys figured out, or you learned it from others, or something? What can you tell us there? How did you learn about that?
A lot of the manufacturers were talking about it. So at the time, like I was saying, you really had a couple different options. But you had to do pull tests, or if you fully adhered it, there was, again, all these questions about what works and what doesn't work. So it was actually the team at GAF actually that really pushed us into RhinoBond. They're the ones that said, hey, if you're doing a pre-engineered metal building, no waste. You could fasten, the RhinoBond right into the purlins, and obviously you still have to use the traditional 3-inch galvanized plates on your insulation. Mm-hmm. But no waste. You have less flutter because typically purlins are 4 to 5 feet apart, so you don't have that 10-foot spacing to have the membrane really flutter. So they're the ones that really were the first ones to really introduce us to us in a metal retrofit setting.
Okay, all right. Now you guys are doing a project right now, right? Tell us about your most recent project, membrane overlay on a standing seam metal roof. What did the building owner consider other options, or was this the only option and you sold it right away? Or were there other options the owner was considering?
Yeah, so what it was, it's a good-sized facility, about 300,000 square feet. And naturally, the owner wanted to know every option available because at that size of a project, every little change makes a difference. So if you have a mechanically attached system and you're mechanically attaching the purlins and you have, like I said, if it's 5 foot spacing between the purlins and the sheet's 10 foot wide, 8 foot wide, 6 foot, 5 foot wide, that little bit of waste adds up over a massive size project like that. So we looked into a couple different things. We looked at fully adhered, but obviously the cost of the adhesives is very high. And then again, you have that doubt of whether the the insulation plates and fasteners are really going to hold into those thinner, 24, sometimes even 26 gauge panels. So RhinoBond was kind of the no-brainer once we priced up. It was definitely the most cost-effective. And then the customer loved the fact that you're attaching directly to the structural purlin, which is by far the best point that you can attach a roof system to if you're doing a metal retrofit.
Okay, all right. And they were, and they liked that idea. They were sold on the technical concept of it and the long-term. Okay.
Everyone always loves the idea of RhinoBond because it's such a cool product. You talk about induction welding. You can kind of compare it to how it works on their stove. You instantly heats up. You have the benefit of the fastener that's wetting down into the steel decking, or in this case, into the purlin. That's also holding not only your insulation down, but it's holding your membrane down. And for us, the technology is cool because you're really taking advantage of the heat welding technology.
Okay. Now, you don't do any coatings on roofs, do you?
Very few. I mean, the right case, the right situation, we look at it here and there.
Mm-hmm. I understand there's a lot of coating sounds simple and sound relatively inexpensive, but I understand there's a lot of labor involved in preparation. And is something you guys have done?
So we've priced up coating a couple of times in the right situation. So we always think of coating as it's similar to sunscreen. It only works before you have the burn. The coating, it's the same thing. It only works before the roof is in bad condition. So if the roof is in okay shape, maybe it's 15 years old, 20 years old, or whatnot, not really leaking too badly, the underlying insulation is bone dry, it can be a great way to extend the life of the roof. But for the most part, usually when people approach us about coatings, it's when the roof really needs to be replaced. So at that point, it's usually not a good viable option. In the case of this building in Auburn, they tried it a couple of times along the seams. Mm-hmm. So they tried coatings, they tried asphalt, cement, EPDM, everything to strip in the seams because that was in this case the point of weakness, and nothing worked because the building had so much expansion and traction. All these various reasons why it just never held up. I mean, they tried it for a good couple of years, and it was always great until the wintertime came or the summertime came. Extreme temperature fluctuations, one way or another.
Right. And I understand RhinoBond, you can use it in all types of, temperature ratings. So you're not restricted to 50 degrees or higher. You can do a RhinoBond metal retro in cold weather. Oh,
very cold weather. Absolutely. Because it doesn't have any temperature restrictions, at least that I'm aware of. I know 20 degrees rising is always the golden rule with everything. If you have primers, adhesives, cleaners. Sure. But we've used it in very cold temperatures, and it's worked great. The only downside, obviously, in colder temperatures is that the sheet can be very tight when it goes out, because it's very cold. And that first summer day when it relaxes, you'll see more wrinkles than typical. Usually it smooths out over a couple of years, but in terms of performance, it works incredibly well.
Now, you're an experienced RhinoBond user in metal retro. Think back your first couple of jobs. How hard was it for you and your crew to get it? It was new to you. Tell us if you can, if you remember your first experience with metal retro and Rhino. How easy could your crew adapt to it?
It took probably maybe a good 2 or 3 projects to really adapt and figure it out. So obviously the first step is the investment in the tools. So you have the RhinoBond tools, the magnets. You really want to have an extra set of magnets for every tool. We learned that very quickly. Having 10 or 12 magnets per one tool allows you to move a lot quicker. Sure. And then finding the plates in the very beginning was tough because we couldn't figure out the best way of doing that. Then we learned very quickly, if you snap lines and you have a general idea, if you keep the plates consistent, then it's a lot easier to find them. Mm-hmm. And then using the magnet itself sometimes to find them, putting little check marks once you do the induction, once you do the full induction and whatnot, so you can make sure that each plate was properly induction welded and bonded. So a couple little tricks that we learned over a couple projects, but I'd say 2 or 3 projects we got the hang of it.
Right. So you evolved over time.
Oh yeah.
As far as making it right. That's great. In your experience, what are some of the key advantages of RhinoBond over other mechanically attached and or fully adhered? I know you mentioned a few, but just what are the 2 or 3 really important ones?
So in a mechanically attached system, the big downside is always the spacing between the fasteners, the sheet flutter. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't affect the longevity of the roof. We've been installing mechanically attached for 30, 40 plus years. But it's always a concern of the customers about, hey, when I look up on a windy day, you see the sheet moving around. So with RhinoBond, that's virtually eliminated because you have a far better spacing between the fasteners and the plate. So because you're installing typically 6 in the field, 9 in the perimeter, 12 in the corner, you just don't see that flutter because the fastener spacing is a lot closer together. Versus a fully adhered roof, obviously fully adhered is a lot more expensive because of the cost of all the adhesives that you have to put down. And what I personally like is the fact that RhinoBond, you have a mechanical attachment into the decking, versus with fully adhered, you're still ultimately attaching to the facer. So if there's any issue with the facer, delamination, things like that, the fully adhered roof doesn't last doesn't work as well. You can have an issue where parts of it might peel up, or you might get blisters, things like that. With RhinoBond, it's not going to be a problem because you're attached right to the decking.
Right. That's great. If you're talking to a fellow roofer, maybe not a competitor, and who's not doing it, they've only done mechanically attached. What are you going to tell them about RhinoBond? You're at a trade show, and you're not a competitor. What do you guys talk about? So if it comes up.
Yeah. So if it came up, what I would say is that it's very similar in terms of installation once you get the hang of it to mechanically attached. I like it because, again, less sheet flutter, about the same speed, about the same cost. And if you're going for any kind of FM project or anything where you need increased wind ratings or wind speed, with RhinoBond, it's so much easier. It's just a matter of putting down more plates and fasteners. So with a mechanically attached, you have to make the sheets narrower and narrower. Sometimes you have to cut them and turn a 10-foot sheet into a 5-foot sheet, or sometimes even a 5-foot sheet into a 2.5-foot sheet. Or you can use rust strip, which is a lot more expensive.
Right.
With RhinoBond, they say, okay, if you're used to doing, say, 6, 9, 12, do 8, 12, 16. We actually even did one that was 16, 24, and 32. So in the corners, the plates are almost touching. But you want to have the best system for a wind speed rating. Good luck with having that system ever blow off.
Right. The 5-foot sheets, I understand, are they easy to get? Are they tough to get from your suppliers, or is it
pretty easy? They're standard products. So some manufacturers, they stock a 5-foot sheet. Other manufacturers like Carlisle stocks a 6-foot sheet, but they're pretty easy to get the half sheets on for picture framing the roof system.
Right. Okay. That's great. So that's about all I have for questions. Anything else you want to say about RhinoBond for metal?
Well, for metal retrofits, at least for us, it's kind of a no-brainer because you never have to worry about how strong the actual metal decking is. You don't have to worry about pull tests. It's nothing like that. Every single time you put it down, you know exactly what you're getting. So it eliminates virtually all of the unknowns. Fastening the purlins, again, you can't get a better attachment than that, even into a Type B steel decking. A purlin is several times stronger than that. Mm-hmm. And then you also get the benefit of having the spacing a lot closer together than a mechanically attached system. So purlins can be 4 feet apart, 5 feet apart, maybe in some cases 6. But being able to fasten and have it work every single time, that's what I like about it.
Okay. All right. Is there a 5th generation coming?
Oh, yeah. I've got a son and a daughter. So a 4-year-old son, 6-year-old daughter.
Excellent. I'm sure they'll be out on the roofs pretty soon.
Oh, absolutely. I've already taken them on a few projects. Just don't tell my wife.
She won't hear this. No, that's fantastic. That's great. And like I said before, it's not an easy industry to get into, but when you have the history and you have the knowledge and someone like yourself who is excited about the roofing industry, that's great. And we need more of you. So excellent. Well done. That's all we have for today. And I want to thank you for coming on. And this is about metal retro, and this is not about heavy metal music, but are you a fan of heavy metal music?
Sometimes, if it's the right mix, the right song, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Well, again, thank you very much, and it's great having you here in this beautiful location. It is a pretty thing to see when you're in the roofing industry. So, again, thank you very much for your time.
Likewise, thank you guys.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.